All right. Well, we are at war for sure, no doubt about it. So our first article comes from MSN. Why did the U.S. attack Iran? What we know so far. President Donald Trump said the United States and Israel launched, quote, major combat operations, unquote, against Iran on February 28th after the largest buildup of American power in the Middle East since 2003, U.S. led invasion of Iraq. Trump also called for Iranians to overthrow their government. Side note, I heard somewhere, uh, TikTok, take it with a grain of salt, that the Iranian or whatever broadcasting systems were hacked and all television was just showing like a video of Trump saying overthrow your government kind of thing. I don't know if that's
Mm.
true. It's a grain of salt. Explosions were observed in Tehran and at least five cities.
Bahrain.
Tehran, yeah, Tehran, Tehran, something
Yeah,
like that.
I think it's Tahrain.
Tehran, okay then, and at least
Who
five
cares?
cities.
It's gone
I
now.
know, right? At least five cities across the country, and Iran's military started retaliating against Israel, according to the Israeli Defense Force. There were also explosions and sirens alerts reports reported in several Middle East nations where the U.S. had military bases. Let's see. How it started. Pentagon has named the operation Epic Fury. Israel's military codenamed it Roaring Lion. Israel initially launched the operation and then was joined by the U.S. The explosions in Tehran were reported early in the morning Eastern Time on February 28th, which is mid morning in Iran. Within hours, Iran started sending missiles towards Israel, and there were reports of attempted strikes against U.S. military facilities in Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates. I've never heard that. And
Yeah,
Qatar.
Emirates, the
Emirates?
United Arab
Emirates?
Emirates.
Yeah. I don't know. A blanky says A, but you're probably right. And Qatar. Some nations and missiles were intercepted. I did hear reports that. Actually, no, I didn't even. Oh, I got rid of it. I did hear reports that like three or four U.S. military service members are dead from
Whoa,
from the operation. So the number of
they
casualties
forgot
from the.
to
Sorry,
they
continue.
forgot to include "make no mistakes" into their Claude prompt.
Oh yeah. The number of casualties from the attacks and reprisals were not immediately known. The United Arab Emirates Defense Ministry reported one civilian there was killed by falling debris. Iranian state media reported that dozens of children were killed when a missile struck a school in Manab in southern Iran. USA Today could not immediately verify that report, and it'll go back and forth for that. What does Trump want to achieve in Iran? The White House has been ramping up the pressure from Iran for months. Trump has at times said he was displeased with the way Iranian authorities violently cracked down on protesters in December last year. He also said that he wants Iran to agree to a new deal on its nuclear program. Trump said on February 27th that he was, quote, not happy, unquote, with the way attempts to solve the issue diplomatically were progressing. Still, some national security experts have questioned Trump's strategic logic for attacking Iran. Uh, don't care. Uh, don't care some more. Mm, what happens now? Iran analysts have expressed concern that the attack could spill over into wider regional war. Uh, quote. Let's be clear. This could have catastrophic consequences. Unquote. Said Trita Parsi, the co-founder and executive director of the Quincy Institute, a Washington D.C. based think tank. I don't care for think tanks. Parsi said that this would, quote, not only put countless U.S. troops in the Middle East in the line of fire, but a risk of massive multi-front expansion of the war and other uncontrollable chaos, from state failure and civil war to ethnic conflict that spread through the region, unquote. And whether that happens remains to be seen. The U.S. has said the operation could last several days. I've heard somewhere that it could now start, be weeks. Number four, 4 weeks keeps coming up, but I don't work for the government, so I can't tell you. Um, Other Iranian specialists have cautioned that if Trump is able to force Iran into a new deal over its nuclear program, it may not improve on the one negotiated by the Obama administration. That agreement limited Iran's uranium enrichment capabilities and was widely regarded to be working when Trump pulled the U.S. out of it. He pulled the U.S. out of it during his first term. However, the as JCPOA, as the deal was called, did not address Iran's ballistic missile program and its support of regional militant groups. Trump said the U.S. would, quote, destroy, unquote, Iran's missiles, quote, annihilate, unquote, its navy, and ensure proxy groups such as Hezbollah and Hamas are no longer able to destabilize the region. Quote, and we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon, unquote, he said. Okay, so not really, at least I don't imagine we'll get into the politics of war, but more or less the economic ramifications of it, because there will be. Now, this should be noted, we don't know how long this is going to last. They projected days here. I've heard it's now being projected as weeks. Could be longer. I don't think we were supposed to be in Iraq in 2001. I don't think we were supposed to be there for 20 years. And, well, we were, but who knows? So, when it comes to. Oh, sorry. When it comes to issues such as like war, when it comes and the economy, military conflict and energy supply shocks are going to be coming. That's actually the second article that we have is the like Iran has closed one of their like oil ports. We'll get to that in a bit. Um, but the shocks can be a major factor for things such as inflation, resource scarcity, and it can disturb global. No, it can't. It probably will distort global markets. So I went, and you can get, and you're Keynesian, so we'll get into this. But I have a note here. It says war dramatically alters a nation's use of scarce resources. Governments frequently choose to print money to purchase war materials instead of increasing taxes. The U.S. government buys goods with the printed money and does not change, but that doesn't change the amounts applied. So when you, now granted, I understand that the U.S. government, when they buy MREs, they're not buying from your local Papa John's unless they're doing something big. But it's still like these companies still have to shift resources towards, you know, usually when the U.S. government asks, buys things from you, you take the deal because it's more or less guaranteed production and guaranteed profits. So now what does that mean? Well, doesn't change the amount supplied. These companies aren't going to start building more warehouses just because they predict a 4-week war to go on. So
Mm-hmm.
as more of the country's resources are diverted to the military supplies, civilian goods become scarce. This leads to inflation. How long the inflation could last how long the conflict lasts could affect the amount of inflation. We're not sure. But inflation usually comes with war. I imagine gun prices would go up for a bit, if I had to guess.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Usually wars aren't positive, so there is a possibility that not possibility. I actually heard somewhere that stocks are essentially pre-crashing before the markets have even opened. Do with that information what you
Yep.
will. Uh, that's I again I stated here. Well, like the point I'm trying to make is, businesses are not going to suddenly again like build another factory, even if the war does take 4 weeks. Now, if they think it'll last longer, even then, I don't see companies building more production factories. If it lasts a year, you know what I mean? Because it's gonna take a year for things to get built, at least, and then people get trained and hired. So, resources are going to the military. That means there's less resources for the average population, the average consumer. So you have the same amount of demand, but half the supply. Prices will go up.
Yep.
There's no getting around
Yep.
that. um, Man, I had something else planned. I couldn't even think of it now. But now, yeah, now I did. Earlier I did state that governments usually tend to, at least our government tends to just what's it called, print money instead of increasing taxes. In other countries, they'll increase taxes. Our country, we will print money. That being said, we've already encountered the possibility of, not possibility, companies are already suing the Trump administration for the tariffs. And I think it was like, what, $280 billion that they're going for. That's going to,
Something.
something like that, trying to get paid back to them because of the tariffs were, um, they were illegal, is what the Supreme Court says. So there's that. Now we have a war. Now we have, oh, man, I hate to say it, dude. I think the Dow might dip below 50,000. I hate to say
And
it.
well, if that happens, then we have to start arresting pedophiles.
Oh man, dude.
Fuck.
No.
No.
It's not supposed to be like this. Um. Oh yeah, another thing is like not only will prices go up just because resources are sent over, but the government has to use a lot of its oil that it would be shipping to you all. It's going to start shipping for its military, even more so. So oil prices go up, your gas price is going to go up. If your gas prices go up, well, it's going to cost more for things to get shipped to you. So not only are the supplies going to increase, but the transportation to it is probably going to make boost things even higher. Any
Mm-hmm.
thoughts?
Uh, man, this is gonna be a interesting set next couple of days because I honestly have no idea if this is really going to affect the market that much.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, stocks are pre-crashing, which kind of doesn't surprise me. But this is like sort of the last. Uh, the U.S. military has figured out if you want to avoid major electoral consequences for starting wars or doing attacks, you do it on a Friday night so the markets can't react. And then by the time the people come back around and the markets are open again, all of a sudden, it's been like 4 days, and then who even cares anymore, bro? It's been 4 days. Old news, old news. So yeah, definitely. I don't know. This is. I think my position is very much just sort of waiting to see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as far as like the resource stuff, I did see. Oh yeah, I did see that apparently. And this is an unsourced thing on Twitter. Okay, so huge grain of salt. All right, get your
Yeah.
Himalayan salt lamp. Um, the apparently the Pentagon was ordering. Um, they had slowly been building up a snack stockpile so that way they could avoid the effects of the pizza index,
Oh yeah, the pizza
like
index.
the yeah, the pizza shop index. So yeah, that's a
In
new.
case people don't know, I will. I'm gonna state what the pizza index is. The Pentagon Pizza Index tracks real-time pizza shop popularity around the Pentagon as an unconventional OSINT indicator of military activity. So ideally, not ideally, what it kind of says now, correlation causation, not sure, but it has a good track record. That should be stated. But what it
Mm-hmm.
is the more like activity at pizza shops around the Pentagon have, you can kind of expect some kind of military action to go on because the idea is that like because we're about to do something with the military, people can't go home, they can't really go out to eat, they kind of have to stay there so they can keep the work going. That way, they check all their bases, whatever. So, what's the most common thing that businesses do to keep their employees happy, but you can do it all at one place? You order pizza. So that's the idea: is
Mm-hmm.
that they're not going home, they're not going out to eat dinner because they're staying at the Pentagon to work. Deliver pizza. So
Yep.
I didn't. Here, hold on a second. Let's check it out. What did I say the attack happened? February 28th.
I think so.
Pizzawatch.com pizza.watch.defcon 4. uh Say it's quiet now. I don't care. Domino's. Is there no way to check the past few days? 100% it happened. That's the status. All right, well, I can't. I don't have time to look into it. But yeah, there's a whole website. You can't see it. I can see it. It's kind of goofy looking. In a weird way, I like it. Very 1980s, 1980s, 1990s kind of looking, but not like actual
Mm.
like normal people website, but like the aesthetic of it. Like Stonks, 1989, yeah,
Yeah.
9800. That's what it looks like. Okay. Well, it's quiet now according to them. So, but the operation's already over, and I can't go back. It won't let me. All right then.
All quiet on
Uh,
the pepperoni front.
so yeah, you make a good point. We won't really know what happens with the stocks until it happens. Well, this video is gonna be posted on Monday, so you all will know by then. Uh, so yeah. Now that being said, segue. I know we said we're
Off a cliff like the creator
yeah,
of segways.
but I know we say like we won't know what the market does. However, thank you pop ups. Our next article comes from the Independent.uk. It's the UK, so do with that what you will. But Iran closes Strait of Hormuz after U.S.-Israeli strikes. Reports say oil majors and trading houses say they have suspended crude oil, fuel, and liquefied natural gas shipments. Iran has reportedly shut down the Strait of Hormuz in response to a joint attack by the United States and Israel. Several tanker owners, oil majors, and trading houses have suspended crude oil, fuel, and liquefied natural gas shipments, and Tehran said it had closed navigation. A trading source told Reuters. Quote, our ships will stay put for several days, unquote, one top executive at a major trading desk said. Satellite images from the tanker trackers showed vessels piling up next to big ports such as Frujaria. Gosh, man, I really am a redneck. In the United Arab Emirates and not moving through Hormuz. Multiple vessels in the area received VHF transmission from Iran's Revolutionary Guards that, quote, no ship is allowed to pass the Strait of Hormuz, unquote, an official with the EU naval mission Aspides told Reuters. Da-da-da-da. The UK Navy said Iran's orders were not legally binding and advised vessels to transit with caution. I don't know, like UK government's like, you should continue your operations. Iran's like, don't do it or face the consequences. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
they, they just
Mm-hmm.
been they were just bombed. I don't think they're in I personally don't believe they're in a good state of mind. So, the Tanker Association, Enertanko, said the U.S. Navy had warned against navigation in the area, the whole of the Gulf, Gulf of Oman, North Arabian Sea, and the Strait of Hormuz, saying it could not guarantee the safety of shipping. Yeah, I just said that. Greece's shipping ministry advised vessels on Saturday to avoid the Persian Gulf. Yeah, we just said that. Now here's the part I find interesting. Some 20% of global oil from producers such as Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Iraq, Kuwait, and Iran passed through Hormuz, as well as a large volume of LNG from Qatar. 14 LNG tankers have shown signs of slowing down, U-turning, and or stopping in or around the strait, said Laura Page from blah blah blah, who added the numbers will likely rise. So that being said, as I alluded earlier, one, in times of war, resources are going to be diverted to the military. One of those resources is oil, and not only is it now being diverted to the U.S. military, now according to this article, about 20% of global oil is being stopped at this port, which, as I already stated, that one of our, all of your cars use gas, and so do truckers, which ship the produce that we use, the production, the whatever. It we need it to transport, and if that goes up, everything goes up. So yeah, and then the thing again, because oil isn't like something we can slowly wane off. You know what I mean? The whole world, the whole United States uses it.
Yeah.
Even the electric car people, they still use it. They still use they still use
Hmm.
the gas to charge the cars. So if a 20% jump is it's gonna, I can't imagine it not happening. Markets are gonna react. There's probably gonna be a rise. At least in my opinion, there's probably gonna be a rise to gas prices. I would say almost immediately. Like it's 1/5 of the entire. Again, according to this article, it's the UK. 1/5 of the total global, you know, oil is just being cut. That's gonna hurt for sure, and it's probably gonna be felt across the markets. Let's see. Yeah, so things are getting more scarce. Da-da-da. Yeah, people can't just easily. Yeah. Man, this sucks. Da-da-da. Any thoughts?
Sorry.
All good.
Yeah, it's gonna be a weird Monday. We need yeah. Fortunately, the U.S. we're still one of the largest oil producers, and we have a decent reserve.
Oh yeah, that's a.
Um,
Sorry, continue.
but
I'll get to my point.
a big part of the reason why we have why we intentionally sell off our reserves or why we buy oil from other countries is to sort of economies abhor nothing more than instability. So if you're trying to get a country to want to not to go to war with you, you try to buy as much stuff from them as you can, and then basically you try to build their economy around doing business with you. So that way, if they politically might want to attack you, there's just the political capital is no longer there because people like the stuff that they get from trading with your country.
Yeah.
So
Okay, and then the one thing I was thinking, I was looking for my notes, I couldn't find it. That's why I was quiet. I wonder, tinfoil hats on, everybody. I wonder if this was
tinfoil hat.
planned for months, but they were like, if we attack them, they're going to cut oil, because we were already like we were already kind of losing oil ish from them because there's something like some treaty was up, and
Yeah.
now we would have to renegotiate for that oil, which may or may not be why we're actually attacking them. But I wonder if the reason why we captured Maduro, was that his name? Did I get that right? The guy in Venezuela?
Yeah.
Maduro? And took back our oil production, which is what happened. So what happened was, and please correct me if I'm wrong, in like 2002 or something like that, we gave Venezuela a bunch of money to build like these oil refineries in Venezuela. And the moment or a little bit after the complete, like they were complete, like Maduro took over and was like, "We're not giving you any of this." And
Hmm.
and the Bush administration was like, "You know what? Fair, I guess. We just gave you all this money, and now." So I wonder if that's like a, you know what I mean? Because obviously Bush didn't retaliate against that. Obama didn't retaliate against that. Trump didn't retaliate against that in his first term. Biden didn't retaliate against that. However, now deals with Saudi Arabia and oil producers around there are over for the United States because I think we made that deal in like the 70s or 80s with them that they would, you know, they
Hmm.
would, buy using U.S. dollar. It was something involving the U.S. dollar. That you know, that was the deal. That deal is up, and now we have to renegotiate. And so is and then Russia and China are trying to get on that for sure, no doubt about it. I wonder if they're like, we need a way to ensure we still have oil production if we do this attack.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
It just depends on how, yeah, it depends on how important the success of this attack is, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how long like this war lasts? Because in the span of a day, we went
Yeah.
from a week to 4 weeks. And also, I haven't looked much into Venezuela's oil production. I don't know if it matches like the scale that you know the Middle East does. I imagine it doesn't
Yeah.
have to match 100%. But I've heard now. I didn't look into it. I just read somewhere as I was scrolling X was that like Venezuela has one of the largest like untapped oil reserves in the world. Not reserves, but like you know what I mean. Like it's predicted that they have a lot of oil that they can dig up, and it's almost comparable
Hmm.
to the Middle East. Again, that is all conspiracy theory. Take that with a grain of salt. Do that what you will. But now, if we are ignoring the fact that we have Venezuela oil, I don't know, man. Like in my mind, stocks are going up. You know what I mean? Not up. It's gonna
Hmm.
It's good. They're gonna crash. Like again, like
No, I think they're going up.
oh, you think you're going up?
No, I was just being,
Oh, okay. I was like, really? I imagine people would be selling. But you know what I mean?
they're
Like
definitely going up. You should buy right now.
yeah. Like I wouldn't like I would agree with you if it wasn't for this kind of retaliation. You know what I mean? Like now here's let's put an extra tinfoil hat on top of ours so we have her now. I wonder if because this is global. It's not like oh we're just cutting oil, 1/5 of the world's oil, cutting 20% from the U.S. You know what I mean? They're not stopping that or like Israel. No, it's global. I wonder if we've we've bombed them. They've put a halt on trade. Now the U.S. is like, guys, the rest of the world, we just have a bunch of oil. Buy from us. You know what I mean? I can kind of see that.
Hmm.
Be like, they're gonna make these deals without us, or we're not gonna get as good of a deal as we got last time. Here's a country, Venezuela, potentially a bunch of oil that just needs to be dug up. We already have the factories there or the refineries there. Why not just blow their stuff up, or at least you know, get rid of their chain of command, throw their country into
Hmm.
disarray? Because I know he's like, now's the time to overthrow your government. You know what I mean? I get that. In my mind, I'm not trying to be mean to our founding fathers and the people who fought in the Revolutionary War. I think that was a fluke. I don't really see a lot of scenarios where the top government is just gone, and the common people who I'm not saying it can't happen, but a lot of these people are farmers, factory workers, people who don't involve in politics or the rest of the world. I can't imagine a bunch of people just come up, fill the spot, and go about their day and call. You know what I mean? As if nothing happened. I feel
Hmm.
like that kind of structure, things are going to collapse. So we have our refineries. We bomb their chain of command. Their country goes into disarray. Well, guys, it's the U.S. We're your allies. Just buy from us. You know what I mean? I can see that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just thinking more
Yeah.
about
It's
this.
over.
You know what I mean?
Sell everything now.
Like that's genius. Why didn't I think of it? You know what I mean? Like, I gotta stop. I can't. I gotta
Yeah.
stop thinking
Yeah.
about it. But well, we'll see. As you stated, we'll see what happens Monday and throughout the week. What I imagine, I don't gamble except on Counter Strike, but I imagine that if stocks go down fast enough, I think we might start like advertising our oil from Venezuela to other countries because it doesn't just affect us. Again, that's global. That's the UK's market. That's Europe's market. I imagine parts of Africa, Australia, Asia. Maybe even Russia. Actually, no, absolutely China and Russia because they're in talks. They were in talks with the oil producers now.
Hmm.
So a bunch of chain of commands are out. Country goes in disarray. Oh my gosh, that might be a power play. You know what I mean? Like, Russia, my guy,
Right.
you stop attacking Ukraine, we'll let you buy oil from us. Because again, I can't imagine a bunch of commoners. Now, granted, I'm not trying to be mean, and I'm sure there's people there who are just like in the politics, and they're just waiting for someone above to die. Well, here's your
Yeah.
chance. You know what I mean? I'm sure that's what I mean, but I can't imagine a revolution happening within a week, let alone
Yeah.
4, but and then things continue as normal. This is gonna because we did something similar during the Obama administration, but what's it called? It's kind of like how ISIS was born, was that we took out the leaders of oh my gosh, what was that terrorist group? Like Al Qaeda. We took out their terrorists, and the same thing happened with the Black Panther Party in like the '60s. I want to say, you take out the leadership, a bunch of gangs are gonna pop up because there's a vacuum for power,
Yeah.
and everybody wants a piece of it. So that's how I imagine we might get even more conflict in the Middle East. I don't know if we'll be a part of that. It might just be a whole, you throw like a piece of meat to the piranhas, and then they'll fight it out, or like
Yeah.
like third partying in battle royales. You let them two duke it out, and then you pick up and you finish off what's left, so you reign on top. You know what I mean? Boy, I sound like a
Hmm.
conspiracy theorist. I need to get out of here. Um,
Hey, man.
well, I guess well, I
Even
guess
that
we'll
much
just
of a
combine these
conspiracy.
segments because we're talking about the stock market. Let's see. Next one, this here comes from it comes from Yahoo Finance. Uh, is the stock market crash coming in 2026? Here's what the data says. That a whopping 72% of Americans have a negative view of the economy right now, according to a February 2026 survey from the Pew Research Center, and nearly 40% believing economic conditions will be even worse a year from now. There's no way to predict what the market will do in the pardon me, will do in the near term, but it can sometimes be helpful to look at history for guidance. Unfortunately for investors, two major stock market metrics are signaling that volatility could be on the way. Of course, volatility would be on the way. There's no doubt about it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
we poisoned a bunch of poppy fields. Like this is oil. Everything
Hmm.
runs on it. I understand. People are like, oh, there's let's build wind turbines and a bunch of solar panels, and it's like both of those have negative effects to it. I've heard that Windmills, they still need oil, to function so that the gears can turn. And I've heard that when you build solar panels, when you put them on the ground, that means whatever's underneath it is going to die because
Yeah.
sunlight's not getting to it. And well, in a quick solution would be we'll put it on top of buildings. My ex, her dad said that's not the best idea. It's great intentions, but when it comes to solar panels, a lot of these buildings, not granted, buildings can be updated, things like that. But a lot of these buildings weren't built with the concept of, okay, let's add, a couple 100 pounds of weight on top of it for fun. You know what I mean? They're meant to
Yeah.
withstand, you know, heat and a few inches of snow. And even then, generally the snow falls off after a certain time. Now you have a couple 100 pounds of pressure for solar panels that don't even absorb enough energy to produce to power a house. Again, great in theory. I'm sure we can find ways to do it, like do it over the ocean. I don't know, but everything still runs on oil. Everything still runs on natural
Yep.
gas. Of course, it's going to be volatile because we don't know how things are going to look. And as you stated earlier, I stated a lot as well. Markets and money love stability. When things are stable and you can predict conditions, markets do well. When you can't predict what's going to happen, people take their money out of the market, that people stop investing because you never know. You know what I mean? As much as uh, everyday people are like, oh, stock market can be a gamble. You don't know. Like, if you can predict it, people are more willing to invest in it, even if you're, mostly wrong. But when things are as unstable as this, things are going to go down. People are going to sell. Now, granted, what people usually invest in when markets go down is like hard assets like gold, silver. I don't know about Bitcoin. I don't know about cryptos. I've seen reports that cryptos are kind of going through the wrong. Not crypto is always volatile. Let's get that out of the way.
Hmm.
Bitcoin and Ethereum are trying to break the standard, but the fact that we had like $100,000 a year and a half ago, I think, and now we're back down to 69. Nice. You know what I mean? It's still volatile.
No.
It's not a what's that word for it? Store of value. That's it.
Hmm.
It's not like gold. It's not like silver. Like, yes, gold and silver do have their downs, but generally over time, I mean, the market does too, if I'm being honest, but
Yeah,
most of
they
the
tend to
time,
stabilize.
yeah, they tend to stabilize more. But like gold, people take the money out of the market. They'll put it into gold because it's stable. You know what I mean? Theoretically, well, not theoretically. Actually, you can hold a gold piece. You know what I mean? I can't hold, 40,000 of Tesla. So of course it's gonna be
Hmm.
volatile. Duh. Thanks. Indicators suggest that. Sorry, indicators suggest the market could be overvalued. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. I'll give them that one. The S&P 500 Shiller CAPE ratio, or clinically adjusted price to earnings ratio, measures the S&P 500's average inflation adjusted earnings over the past 10 years. A higher ratio suggests the S&P 500 could be overvalued, and historically stock prices tend to decline after a peak. Duh. That's why it's called a peak. Uh,
Yeah,
and
obviously.
did you know that the price of a stock indicates how much someone thinks the price of the stock should be?
No way. What?
Damn it, hold on. I'm funny. in, in 1999, for example, the S&P 500 Shiller Cape, I'm just going to call it a Cape ratio reached a record high for around 44. Tech stocks have ballooned in price in recent years, leading to the dot-com bubble burst in the early 2000s. It also peaked in late 2021, just before the market entered a bear market that would last most of the following year. Yeah. As of the writing, the ratio is close to 40. This is the highest it's been since the dot-com bubble. Sorry, since the dot-com bubble more than 25 years ago. Oh my God, I'm old. Are you? And significantly higher than the long-term average of around 17. We've talked about this. This is nothing new. We've been talking about this for years,
Mm.
actually. Markets overvalued because interest rates were near zero since 2020. COVID. In theory, I get it. In practicality, stupid. But interest rates were cut, so people are more likely to buy stocks because banks are willing to lend out more, and people are willing to do that for sure. Uh, so bam, value goes up, and it's not like now. Granted, like I think like 2 years ago, interest rates were going up to 5, and now they're coming back down. We went from like either 5 a year or 5 a year and a half ago, and now we're down to 3. And we've heard reports that interest rates are going to be cut later again this year or something like that. Yeah, that's right. Because we talked about like the third tinfoil hat on. Interest rates are going to be cut. That way, people are willing to invest more into the AI stocks once what is it? ChatGPT. Sorry, OpenAI, um, X, Tesla, Elon Musk's. Their AI companies or whatever. They go public. So there's that theory. So well, just as it says, it's overvalued, and it's becoming more and more overvalued. And since AI is going off, so while OpenAI and Grok and other type of Meta and other types of AI companies are about to be in the market towards the end of the
Hmm.
year, that doesn't mean there's not like smaller AI companies that people are trying to push that are already at the lower levels. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, check out our new, AI company. It's not OpenAI, but it uses OpenAI. Invest in us, and we have the same technology as the people that aren't even on the market yet. So money's being thrown into these companies. It's inflating. We do have what's it called? We've stayed. We've talked about this in the past month. The highest amount of people can't pay back their debts. People are doing payday loans. People aren't able to buy houses. Reports earlier, people aren't able to sell their houses because they're so expensive. So, and then now we're at war. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's just like that's a cluster. Of course, I imagine it's going to crash. Now that being said, I know a lot of people think that when a market crashes, it's like the 1920s. I think it's like what was it, like 1923 or something like that. It was the big market crash, and it set off like the Great Depression, not the Great, it set off like a terrible, terrible time for the United States, and it lasted like I read a book, I can't remember. It was like 7 years. The market didn't start improving, or like it struggled to improve for 7 years. From my research, crashes are like they don't last a while. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it'll crash, and then I'm sure there's someone gonna be like, "Well, that's a sale," and start picking it up again. You know what I mean? I don't imagine it'll crash and then just keep crashing for a while. I do believe there will be a what's called a rebound, especially with the amount of people who are investing nowadays. Back then, like the 1920s, I think it was only like 5-10% of people were investing, kind of thing. Might not even be that much, but today I heard the numbers at like 50, not 50, like 30. You know what I mean? People who actively like own stocks and that aren't included in their their 401ks or retirement stuff, whatever. So yeah, it'll crash, and crashes don't necessarily mean uh, a recession, but most recessions usually have a crash. Does that make sense? Not all crashes means
Yeah.
recessions, but most recessions usually have crashes. I don't know. I mean, if I really had to put money on it, I would say yeah, we're probably going to be heading towards a recession, and that's what the Fed is kind of preparing for. You know what I mean? Cutting interest rates, trying to boost up the boost up the stock market, especially with the introduction of all the AI, the big AI companies. But people can't pay their rent. Prices are going up, but for groceries. So, you know what I mean? Am I making sense?
No, I understand.
We might be
I
heading
get you.
toward we might be heading towards a recession. I don't know how bad it'll be. Recessions is just like what? It's like 2 quarters of like negative GDP or something like that.
2 quarters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give me a second. Let me look it up so I'm not a complete idiot. Um,
Yeah, I think it's 2 quarters of negative GDP growth.
uh, recession definition. Uh, downpour. Yeah, two consecutive quarters of negative GDP. Okay, cool. Yeah. So, but that's the thing. We've stated this before. We are not really a country that has a lot of like our factories here. You know what I mean? We still have factories for sure, but nothing like we had in like the 70s, 80s, heck, even like 60s. We're mainly a country that produces services. Does that make sense? So, it the numbers could be skewed, which I wouldn't put it past the government to skew numbers, but
Hmm.
they might be like, look at all the services we provide with AI. You know what I mean? Boom,
Yeah.
because we have the AI. We're gonna have an AI boom with at least stock market wise with the introduction of these the companies I was talking about. So then, bam, it'd be like, oh look, like we don't have a negative GDP because we have you know Google Plus. That's my theory. If I had to say, I don't know if it'll lead to a recession, but and even if it does lead to a recession, I don't know if it's like time to start building a cabin in the woods and growing your own food. You
Hmm.
should know how to do that though, because you never
Right?
know. Warren Buffett, investor. Oh, anything to add before I continue?
No,
Nope. Okay. Uh,
you're dead
Warren
on.
Warren Buffett says investors could be quote playing with fire unquote. Um, Another popular market metric is the Buffett indicator, which also measures valuations, but in a significantly different way than the Shiller Cape ratio. The Buffett indicator measures the relationship between total market cap of all U.S. stocks and U.S. GDP. The higher the ratio suggests the overall market may be overvalued, while a lower ratio implies it's undervalued and a prime time to be buying. I mean, yeah, okay, I mean, I guess, but it's like that's the same thing as saying buy low, sell high. Everyone's got different ways of doing it, and because you can, I think like one of the earliest iPhones had the stock app. You know what I mean? It's not like something you have to calculate. However, I do have a calculation for that. I wrote in my one of my notes, intrinsic value kind of stuff. So you can do the numbers. Most people are doing that. Most stock market apps are kind of doing that for you. So unless you are like a day trader, a lot of this stuff probably isn't too important. You know when the market is down. What should investors do right now? Again, no market indicator can predict exactly what stocks do. Thanks. Even if a recession is on the way, the market could potentially be poised for many more months of growth before a downturn takes hold. Da-da-da-da, but that doesn't mean you can't prepare. Prepare is the best way to protect your portfolio against a recession or a crash. Is to invest only in high quality stocks with solid foundations. Uh, I guess like the S&P 500. That kind of holds steady, but that's the concept of put a bunch of eggs in your basket. You know what I mean? If one
Yeah.
goes bad, you still have a basket of eggs. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but and let's see. The healthier the underlying company is, the better its chances of thriving over time, despite short-term volatility. Yeah. Well, we can get into that. So when it comes to companies, Usually, smaller companies or companies that have higher volatility don't survive big crashes because people don't want to invest in it. People don't want to invest in it. People don't buy the product. So it's kind of like Darwinism. Is that kind of what I'm thinking of? The only the toughest
Yeah,
survive kind of thing. So when they say like, oh, with a portfolio of healthy investments, what they mean is generally stocks that A have been around for a while, B have a steady history of maintaining or slowly increase or slowly decreasing in price. But it's more or less how many things can you nail down to the floorboard before the earthquake happens. Generally, things that are already nailed down, you don't have to worry about. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't worry about them. Now, sorry, man. That being said, when crashes do happen, if you're fortunate, this is not financial advice, do your own research. This is my research. If you're fortunate enough to have some money, maybe you sell now before the crash happens and you have some money left over, buy low, sell high. You know what I mean? It's a
yeah,
Now granted, a lot of people are investing more nowadays. News is traveling at a faster rate than ever before. I'm probably not the only person thinking that. You're probably not the only person thinking that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it's kind of a weird thing to think about. Like, yeah, prices might go down, but they might drop 5%. Bunch of people see that as a sale and pump the numbers up. Now, granted, that does mean the market's still overvalued, but being overvalued, like if people want to believe that's what it's valued at, that's what they'll value it at. You know what I mean?
hmm
With like larger companies, they can get away with it because there's so many people investing into them. Smaller companies have to worry about being overvalued because one little, what's called, break in the chain, the armor comes off. Bigger companies don't necessarily have to worry about that right now. Now, okay, this is not financial advice, but they did some numbers. So about investing during crashes or whatever. Nvidia, if you invested $1,000 in 2009, today you'd have $459,000. Apple, if you invested $1,000 in 2008, you'd have $50,305. Netflix, if you invested $1,000 in 2004, you'd have over $500,000. Now, I'm gonna add. So Apple, I can see Apple. You know what I mean? Prices go up, inflation, whatever. I know we talked about Nvidia and we talked about Netflix. Nvidia really only got their boom, and Netflix too, during the COVID stuff. You know what I mean? Nvidia, at least at start, the reason why their stock was going up was because you know what I mean, like shippings were being or having places were having problems shipping. You know what I mean? Because of COVID. So a lot of ports are going down or
mm
they're slowing down. So supply and demand. But and not only that, there's probably even greater demand. People are stuck at home. I guess now would be a good time to build that PC I was talking about. You know. And then
right?
once those prices go up, you have scalpers, you know what I mean? And people buy stuff from scalpers. That's why scalpers exist. And if I was Nvidia, I'd be like, well, clearly these people are willing to pay, 8,000, not 8,000, that's stupid. People are willing to pay $1,200 for this basic GPU, whatever, you know what I mean? So that was
hmm
during the initial COVID, and then now recently the AI boom. Companies all over take buying as much, RAM and stuff like that as they can, which Nvidia makes RAM, right? Yeah, like you know what I mean. All this technology is
Yeah,
exploding, and then kind of same thing for Netflix. Everyone's hunkered down at home. People just started buying Netflix subscriptions, and it had a boom. You know what I mean? So again, if you look at Nvidia and Netflix, I would say probably one of the two biggest companies that skyrocketed during the COVID boom, almost some $500,000 ish, as opposed to Apple. Everyone's got a phone. Everyone's using a phone. Only 50,000. So I know with Nvidia and Netflix, it's nice to think about like, oh my god, $1,000, and then all I gotta do is wait 20 years. I could be half a millionaire. That's nice to think about, but you can't predict stuff like that. You know what I mean? Unless you're Nancy Pelosi, but you can't predict something like that. You know what I mean? I think the Apple example much better, like realistic view of how much your stock might go up. Nvidia is a pretty number, Netflix is a pretty number, but they had extremely specific circumstances that led to that. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
But, and I guess if I had to say, if I want to talk more economics about it, less about finance, this will probably create a bigger divide between the, I want to say the haves and have-nots. The people who can steady market crash and then have money and spend it over, as opposed to people who are living paycheck to paycheck, taking out payday loans, can't afford rent. Those people aren't going to be able to buy stock. You know what I mean? They're too busy trying to buy food. So, yeah, there's that. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, do your own research. Long story short, do your own research. I'm not gonna tell you what to invest in. Uh, that's for Patreon. Uh, I'm predicting a crash. If I had to put money on it and a gun to my head, I'd say we're expecting a crash, mainly because of the oil
Yeah.
retaliation. If it wasn't for the oil retaliation, I don't think there'd be a crash. I think people wouldn't care. And even with the oil retaliations, people will see a sale. Will it lead to a recession? I don't know. But
I
anything
don't think it'll
more?
lead to a recession. I
Yeah.
think we're probably going to see it's going to be like $3 trillion wiped from the market, and it's not going to change anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, sale or however that song went.
Yep.
But speaking of marketplaces,
Yep.
New York City. So this is a fun little segment. Um, a little about me. Uh, this is kind of weird to talk about me on a economic channel, but I like buying Counter Strike. Now I don't trade Counter Strike skins, uh, unless at least for monetary value. I'll trade them if I think they look pretty and they're worth it. But I don't care for the marketplace of CS, and it's got its pros and cons for sure. But this comes from Yahoo News and PC Gamer. New York sues Valve for, quote, letting children and adults illegally gamble, unquote, with loot boxes. New York State Attorney General Letitia James announced on X and Blue Sky today that the state of New York is opening a lawsuit against Valve for violating the state's gambling laws through its games. In a brief post, James says Valve has, quote, made billions of dollars by letting children and adults illegally gamble for the chance to win valuable virtual prizes. These features are addictive and harmful, unquote. In a subsequent press release, the Attorney General office called out Counter Strike 2, Team Fortress 2, and Dota 2 specifically. Well, duh. That's like Valve's biggest game. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Of course, that's like, oh, we're suing Apple based on their iPhone and Mac stuff. You know what I mean? Like, well, duh, you're probably not
Yeah.
selling them over their earbuds. Quote, an investigation by the Office of the Attorney General found that Valve's video games, including Counter-Strike games, enabled gambling by enticing users to pay for the chance to win a rare virtual item of significant monetary value. Okay. Valve's most popular game, the process resembles a slot machine with an animated spinning wheel that eventually rests on a selected item. The randomly selected virtual items have no in game functionality. False skins make you play better. but can be sold online for
That
money
is true.
with
Backed up by research.
Absolutely, dude. With one item reportedly being sold for more than $1 million. The lawsuit alleges that Valve has made billions of dollars luring its users, many of them who are teenagers or younger, to engage in gambling in hopes of winning expensive virtual items that they can cash in on. With this lawsuit, Attorney General James seeks a permanent stop to permanently stop Valve from continuing to promote illegal gambling in its games to pay God, fuck it, to pay fines. Okay, so and they go into like guns being sold for a lot of money. Okay, so I have a couple things on this. What do we classify as gambling? So I'm not trying to defend loot boxes here, but from my understanding, gambling implies you lose your, you know what I mean? To me, it's you lose your money. With loot boxes, if I had to make an argument for loot boxes, you are at least guaranteed something. You know what I mean? Because if you go into something like a Five Below, they've got those boxes too. You know, you got the little toy inside. You don't know what it is, um, and it's a gamble. And you could say the same thing for McDonald's and their Happy Meals. You know, granted, that's a smaller scale. That's kind of a goofy thing to think about. But like, there are times when McDonald toys, you know, they become worth value because A, of how quote unquote rare they are, and B, adults want to buy, you know, kid toys because of the nostalgia factor. Not me. I'll point that out there. So you know what I mean. So it's not the only. You know what I mean? Am I making sense? Like we say, loot boxes are
Yeah.
gambling, but you're guaranteed something. If I don't get a toy in my Happy Meal, I go inside McDonald's and I get the toy for my kid. You know what I mean? So, at least in my mind, the difference between a loot box and a casino is if I put $5 into a slot machine, there's a chance I don't get that money back. Period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess that we can go by that logic. Those quarter turn machines you see at like retail stores. If I, again, we're not. I understand the difference between a plastic ring you get in a 50-cent turntable thing at a retail store and a blue gem case hardened AK-47 on Counter-Strike 2. I understand there's a monetary difference perceived by the public. But you know what I mean? It's the same thing. You put money
Yeah.
in, you get object out. You're guaranteed it. If you don't get it, you usually complain to the people and they give you the object. Same thing with claw machines in arcades. You're I can already tell you those things are rigged. They're meant to be rigged. I've read reports. I've seen videos. I had a family friend who worked on claw machines, and he'll tell you absolutely, yeah, they're rigged. Something now, granted, that was like 15 years ago. I don't know how they operate now, but they're rigged. You put money in, there's a chance you're not getting anything back. So I find it kind of goofy that it's only Valve, not EA for the Battlefront and their sports loot boxes, not Blizzard for their, you know, I can only think of like Overwatch. Does Diablo, you would know better. Does Diablo have any loot box systems? You would know better than I would.
Um, I don't think so. Not that you could buy.
Okay,
But I don't
that's fair.
remember.
You know what I mean? Like, I know Call of Duty had a loot box system for a while. They got rid of it
Hmm.
over time. I think they've learned that they make more money just selling skins straight up. You know what I mean? But these are a whole bunch of
Yeah.
companies that are producing loot boxes. But Valve is the only one we're going to target. Now, granted, they might be using Valve to set an example. Maybe. Now, that's one point I've got. Any comments for that?
Nope.
Okay, fair. My second point is that I had a second point. What was I thinking of? Oh yeah, my second point. A, you're guaranteeing an item, but B, what people value that item as, like how much they think that is worth, that's not Valve's fault. No, okay, that's a lie. That's an absolute lie. Valve creates a rarity. You know what I mean? But there are, at least before they had the trade up contract for knives. Okay, for those who are listening, they don't know. So it's a loot box. You know, you pay for a box, you pay for a key. Well, you get a box if you have Prime. You get a box once a week. You pay $2.64 with tax to open the box, and you get a random gun. And there's different rarities, and uh, there might be different patterns and wear conditions. So, and then so it's divided by colors. You know, blue grays are like the most common, followed by blues, then purples, then pinks, and then like reds. Obviously, with it becoming less and less likely as the colors progress in the order I just gave it in. So yes, there's absolutely a factor to it. But before the trade up contract, if they thought the gun was the rare gun was ugly, it wouldn't be valued as much. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So it's the people that determine how much they want to pay for the gun. Uh, you know what I mean? And case hardened blue
Yeah.
gem AK-47s are in a box that is no longer produced, so supply is not going up, but the demand is still there. And as the supply goes down, prices go up. But I think that box is like $135. So $135 plus a key to open it for a chance to get an AK, a rare AK with a chance of a good pattern. Besides the point, but that's a pretty. I'll say this: blue gems are pretty. I like them. I want to buy one. I want to
Hmm.
buy a. I want to buy a. I'm thinking about buying a Desert Eagle blue gem, the heat treated, and the 5.7.
Hmm.
But but the community determines the price. You know what I mean? It's cool that they brought up an example that a Counter Strike gun skin sold for $400,000 last year, but it only sold for $400,000 because somebody thought it was worth $400,000. The person who sold it thought the gun was valued at that price or lower, and the person who bought it thought it was valued at that price or higher. That's not entirely Valve. You know what I mean? Like Valve, yes, created the percentage system and the pattern system and the wear system, but if people thought it was ugly, they wouldn't be buying it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like stocks. You know what I mean? If you really want to get into it, if you don't know what you're doing and you're not going through an investment company, you're not going through a broker themselves, it is a gamble. You know what I mean? If you're just throwing money at a stock, it could explode like Nvidia. Do we blame the stock
Yeah.
market for a gamble? No, because if you want, you can put. There's a chance that when you put your money into a stock, it could drop to zero, and you get nothing back. But generally speaking, you put your money into a stock, whether that price goes up or down, you can pull that money out. You know what I mean? Same thing here. If they
Yep.
really want to look at it like that, you can put your money into a gun skin and hope that it goes up or down. Now, I know they're talking about the loot box system, where you pay the money, it might go up or down. You know what I mean? You might not get something that's worth the same amount of money you put in, but when you buy a stock, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to get the same amount that you get out of it. That you put into it. There's no guarantee for that.
Yeah.
It's a chance you take. Now, granted, it's faster. You know what I mean? You know in an instant if you spent $2.64 and you lost $2.40. You know what I mean? You know in an instant,
Yeah.
but it's still there. So I don't entirely agree that it's gambling, but you know what I mean? It is chance. I can't turn that away. You know what I mean? I believe it was you.
Yeah.
You told me, I want to say like last year or a year before, about the psychology of the ticking. Like when you
Of the
open the box,
ticking.
like when the guns scroll across your screen.
I've I did. I don't remember.
I was like, you told me about that. How it psychologically gets the person to be like, that was fun. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure it was you that told me that because I don't have friends
That's
that
not true.
that that do Counter Strike stuff. You know what I mean? Like you're the
Yeah.
only person I play Counter Strike with and that understands
Yeah.
that system. So I'm pretty sure it was you. But
It
that
probably was. I just whatever small factoid it is, I do not have in my head currently.
Well, I think it's because you were taking like some like psychology class, and I remember you're taking. I think you're taking some kind of psychology class, and you were talking about the like it creates a like a dopamine hit. You know what I mean? Even if you do
Yeah,
lose, like the spinning, the sound, the clicking, the
yeah,
being
you had
so
fun
close
losing.
to the gun creates a dopamine hit that makes you want to come back again. Same thing with slot machines. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I get that. I just don't entirely view it as gambling as well, because to an extent, you still get something. You know what I mean? Even if the
Yep.
community doesn't view it as valuable, you still get something. It's just not. It might not be what you value it at. Does that make sense? Like just because like I just recently bought a skin today, a factory new you know shotgun skin that I think it's it was pretty, but it was marked so low at a price, mainly like
Han Solo's brother.
yeah, like it was you know what I mean, like it was low price, and I valued it at the price the person was offering it.
Hmm.
They got it for free. Like literally, they got
Yeah.
it for free. It came with that one, because Counter Strike they have side collections that you get free guns in if you pay for Premiere. You get a free gun every week, guaranteed. So you know what I mean? Like that's also a part of the if I was on the side of New York, you could qualify that as gambling. You pay $15. Now granted, it's $15 and you got it. Period. You don't have to rebuy it again. But you pay $15, you don't know if that free gun you get every week, if it's gonna be valuable. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
again, the marketplace sets the price. Not so much now with Valve and their new system, because I know they're worried about the being sued over loot boxes. And I think and it should be noted that this case is coming out now. Counter Strike's been having loot boxes since 2013. It's coming out now. Why is it coming out now? Now, granted, it's coming out now because people see value in these skins and the price goes up. You know what I mean? Like you and I can dream about it. There was a time when the case that I mentioned earlier that had the case hardened 8K in it, the chance of it, it's like $135 or something like that. There was a time those cases were 3 cents.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They only care about it now because the prices are up. You know what I mean? They didn't care about it when in 2013, 14, 15. They haven't cared about it for the past 13 years. They care about it now because people value it. If I had to guess, they might want a portion of the taxes of it. If I had to, you know, if I really had to, put a tinfoil hat on for that. And for my final point on this, they say like it's harmful for children, and I absolutely agree with them. That ticking noise, that
Hmm.
every time, that is absolutely harmful for children. Why are kids playing the game? Now, okay, I get it. Like it's a free game. It wasn't. It was only free for the past like 10 years. Not 10 years. Like the past like 5 or 6 years. Actually, it might have been 8. Whatever. It's free. I get it. But that's an M-rated game. Uh, Parents should be monitoring what their children do. I know realistically that's not possible. You know what I mean? Like you can't monitor everything your child does. I remember being a 15-year-old boy with a laptop. Parents didn't know what I was doing with it until I could barely run my computer. You know what I mean? It was a struggle
Yeah.
to open up tabs. But your kids should be monitored with stuff like this. You have to. You know what I mean? That's not the Counter Strike's fault. That's not Valve's fault that you're letting your kids get access to this kind of stuff. Second of all, it costs money. Where are they getting the money from? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for like young adults, I can kind of get it. You know, like 15, 16 year olds, like oh, they got their first job. You know, kind of thing. Like so they have the money, but they're talking about like children, because they already mentioned young adults in here. So they're talking about children. How are the children getting the money? Well, the parents are giving the money. That's not Valve's fault. You know what I mean? Kids play Grand Theft Auto 5, guaranteed. That how did they get that? When I was younger, if I wanted to buy an M-rated game, my dad had to be with me. Or if I look, or let's say I was 17 years old. I even think I think 18-year old. I think even though the box says rated M, 17 and older, 17 plus, you still had to be 18 to buy it. At least at GameStop and other retailers. Online games, uh, you can buy M-rated games if you have like a full access account. You can make what's called like parental guide, viewing accounts. You know what I mean, for your kids.
Mm-hmm.
That way your kids don't see all the stuff. Because by that logic, well, guess what? Overwatch has loot boxes. Call of Duty had loot boxes. A bunch of other games have loot boxes, and those are all. Is Overwatch rated M? I'm pretty sure Overwatch is rated M, or was it rated teen?
I think so. I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You should be monitoring what your children do. I understand you can't
Yes.
realistically do that forever, but A, monitor what your kids are doing. B, stop giving them your credit card. Why are you
Yeah.
trusting your kid with your with your credit card? But it reminds me of a quote I heard one time. I heard it was from an actor. Don't quote me. But saying a man can't eat a steak because a 1 year old can't chew it is stupid, or it was something like that. It's like your kids shouldn't be doing it. You should be watching what your kids play, or making sure they don't have access to your credit card. And again, they're
Yeah.
kids. You can't predict everything, but it's like the game's rated M. You're guaranteed. Game's rated M. Kids shouldn't be playing it. You're guaranteed something just because the market doesn't view it as the equal value that you put into it. You know what I mean? Just because
Mm-hmm.
that's it, that doesn't mean that you lost all your money. You got something. The same thing with other loot boxes. Same thing with those boxes I see at Five Below. Same thing with those like 25, 50 cent, $1 coin machines. If we really want to get into it, the gumball machines. I like the color blue. I like blue gumballs. I put 25 cents in, I get green. I hate sour apple. Can I sue the company for gambling at the age of 8? You know? But
Yeah.
again, they
I
only
think
care because it's
this is
making
sort
money
of,
now. But continue. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think this is sort of in line with like one, like this isn't something that Valve has sort of uniquely had to deal with. I know there's laws in I think France, in Belgium, that prohibit like when you get the case, you're told what's inside of it. Like the gambling sort of happens preemptively. So whenever you buy a case, when it's something where it's like you basically get to see inside the case, um,
Well, beforehand.
but once you've seen inside the case, so you can choose to see inside the case, and it costs you no money. I think this is how it works. You can choose to see inside the case, and it costs you no money. But once you choose to see inside the case, you can no longer sell it. So you can't like find a case that has like a dragon lore or something, and then like sell that case, or buy a case, see what's inside of it, and then sell it off for like whatever, without having to like actually pay to open the case, right? Um, because if you get a, let's say you get the free case that could have it like a Gungnir, right? You get the case, you get the Gungnir. Um, if you're
Gungnir's
super
a skin.
lucky, instead of spending $2 to open the case, you can just sell the case. It's total instant profit, but they prevent you from actually like selling the case if you choose to X-ray and look inside. And it was part of some like gambling law that they have
Yeah.
where you're allowed to see the odds or something. Either way, it's not something that like Valve is a stranger to, of people coming and be like, "Hey, you're making kids gamble."
Yeah.
And
I
on the
get
one
yeah.
hand, it's like, yeah, it's probably not a good thing to have kids gambling. But on the other hand, I am very much of the same opinion where it's like so much of this is like this isn't a failure of the company. This is a failure of like the parents.
Yeah.
Your child should not be unattended, or like
Yeah,
not
your
even
child
necessarily
shouldn't have
unattended, but
like
like you should
unrestricted
be
access
aware
to
of
the
this
internet.
stuff. Yeah, like it's that stuff, right? And it's sort of in line with like the whole Discord stuff where it's like, what if I want my child to have unrestricted internet access without having to worry? It's like I is effectively the same as saying actually it's even worse than that because I was going to say it's effectively the same as saying I want my child to be out in public without having to worry about them, which unironically I think is a more rational desire than wanting
Yeah.
that on the
Mm-hmm.
internet because that would be like, well, I want the ability to let, you know, to give my social security, to give my credit card information to anyone without any negative repercussions. Like, it's probably worse in some microcosms, but also like, there's an element of like, it's like I should let my kid be able to go out in public and do whatever he wants without having to worry about it. It's like, sure, that's fine, unless you live in Vegas, in which case, eh, I don't know, probably not. I think adults should be allowed to do the stuff that adults do in Vegas. And if you're someone who has a problem with that, then don't raise your kids in Vegas. Like this is a
Yeah.
that's sort of like the
Mm-hmm.
position here where it's like, but my well, I shouldn't have to worry about my child doing that. It's like, well, in most places you wouldn't. You're letting them choose to be in the one spot where they shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to have to monitor them, right? It's like, oh, I want to let my kid wander the city. It's like, okay, I mean that's fine. Just teach them not to go near the red light district. Why shouldn't have to? What? Yeah, they should shut down the red light. Whoa, 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 whoa. These are
But
like adults get to make those decisions.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's that type of thing where it's like, just because you're afraid that someone might like show your kid something that you would not like readily show your child, or get them into something that you would not readily get them into. Just because kids shouldn't drink alcohol doesn't mean adults shouldn't be allowed to either.
Yeah.
Um, and
I
it's
should
like
be able to
these,
spend my
this,
money on what
like,
I want legally.
yeah, like if I want to go to the liquor store, buy an entire thing of Jack Daniels, and then down the whole thing when I get home, or down the whole thing and then ride the train home, I should be allowed to do that. What the heck? As long as I'm
Mm-hmm.
not harassing anyone.
Yeah.
And if
But
your kid sees me do that, well, maybe don't be out at
don't send them to the
3 in the
red light district.
afternoon. Maybe
Oh.
don't be out at 3 in the afternoon in the middle. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it ostensibly sounds pretty reasonable until you realize. Actually, here's the big kicker, right? It ostensibly sounds pretty reasonable until you realize like the level of like surveillance like invasive surveillance that's required to like make it a reality. Where it's
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
okay, but how does a computer know that it's a child? And the answer is, well, and you get two positions. One, well, that's easy. We'll have the camera watch everything. The computer will record and monitor and assess literally every single action, every frame of the webcam, every click of the keyboard, everything will be monitored and stored and analyzed by machines and people to determine whether or not it's a child doing the thing. Or you go, hey, that's really insanely invasive. And they go, oh, okay, here's the other option. No one's allowed to do any of it. The whole internet is boring and sterile, and adults aren't allowed to talk, like have adult conversations about adult topics, and for fear of a child stumbling across it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But.
Again, in line with
Mm-hmm.
the whole Discord thing where it's like, well, we don't want kids getting into NSFW servers. Okay, tell the parents to not let their kids join NSFW servers. And if their kids join NSFW servers, their parents should probably have access to that kid's computer and be like, hey, what are you doing in NSFW's servers? Oh, it's a virus. Yeah, I'm not dumb. Or maybe you are if you're letting your kids go
Yeah.
unmonitored like that.
I was gonna say when I was
But yeah,
growing
I know
up,
when I was younger, I didn't get. Yeah, well, I was gonna say like my parents were pretty tech savvy, so I wasn't able to like sneak anything past them. Like my dad does like computer stuff for a living. So like in my particular instance, to me, it's very foreign. Like these instances where adults are incapable, like the internet and computers are like this inscrutable um, sort of like maze of screens and images, and I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on. I can't keep track of. Like to me, that's totally foreign. Like my dad knows significantly more about computers than I do. And so when I especially when I was younger, so like the concept of being able to like hide something was just like, yeah, that's never happening because he knows more creative ways to hide things than my little brain could ever come up with, and he's already thought of all the stuff that I could figure out. Um, so I think my internet access when I was younger was rather healthily monitored. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's just like, or don't give your kid access to a phone that has access to the internet, which is probably just healthy in general. Kids shouldn't be
Yeah.
on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then two, if you're gonna do it, most of them come with like whitelists and then parental protections. And if your kid is like working, if your kid is putting in the effort to go to your phone, to go through and release all the blah blah blah, and like do all these additional steps, there's probably some other like authority issues going on there. Like this is probably they're probably if they're that dedicated to look at boobs, brother, they've probably already seen them. Not
Oh
that they
yeah.
should continue to do so, but also like this is a deeper problem for that individual child.
Yeah, that might be a child psychiatrist kind of issue you need to figure out.
Yeah. Timmy won't stop looking at boobs. They're all dumb.
Yeah, again, I agree. This is a parent issue. Uh, they only care because things are getting expensive because people value the items more. You know what I mean? That's the only reason why they care. That they didn't care. They don't care about children. They don't. If they did, they wouldn't have stopped this years ago. Now, granted, I know you mentioned about those other countries, but even then, with the other countries, like you only get those boxes if you pay for Prime. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
theoretically, if the only reason they were going to CS was to get those boxes, you know what I mean? There's a chance that they'll pay $15 and never make. You know what I mean? Like again, I mean it's kind of cool that they have that system, but at the same time, like I don't know, that sounds kind of weird to me. At least the way they did over there. But yeah, monitor what your kids do. Don't let your kids have unfettered access to your credit card. That just sounds stupid. How do you get away with that? You know what I mean? Like if there's a random charge that I don't know about, my bank sends me a message. They're like,
Mhm.
"Hey, do you normally shop at ediblethongs.com? Cuz someone spent $25 there." You know what I mean? Like I have to imagine that if you don't play video games, you don't play Counter-Strike, your bank's like, "Hey, you just spent like $50 at Steam. You
Mhm.
don't play video games." Also, check your
Right.
bank statements. Okay, that's just a healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that's our take on it. I think the lawsuit's kind of dumb, but I don't know if it'll go anywhere. You know what I mean? Because I know Valve is they're changing the way they do their quote unquote loot boxes. They got that terminal thing where it shows you five random items and you can decide if you buy it, but which I kind of get. I also kind of don't. But that's a different story. All right, but I think that's what we're gonna call it. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and comment and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.